Now, going on to the political part of the podcast, you have Biden secretly meeting with the UAW president. Now, the UAW is known as the United Auto Workers, and they're the union traditionally for the big three. So you got General Motors, you got Ford, and you have Chrysler. All very great, reliable vehicles manufacturers. And it looks like they're meeting with the president in regard to the current contract discussions, as they're starting to have those renegotiations go on. As the current contracts expire, you have to renegotiate the new contract. And there's also the 9 or 10 millionth reason why Tesla, Toyota, Honda, they're all infinitely better reliability and price, because they don't have unions. They have people invested to actually do a good job. Which unions, vastly speaking, average, they just incentivize people to be there for a long duration. It's usually you get paid for how many years you served, not how well you served or worked. And the UAW is infamous for having someone they had it to the point where someone was making $68 an hour to put a tire in a car at an assembly line for General Motors. I think in 2007, right before the bankruptcy, or one of their bankruptcies. They've gone bankrupt many times. But one of the top reasons GM won't go bankrupt again and again and again, when you look at the pie graph of all their cost, it's the healthcare for the workers, the pensions, and the UAW. All extreme high labor costs. And if you talk to anyone who works at one of those companies, getting anything done has more red tape than the government. Because again, it's not how you make a great product, most would say. Also, Apple products, pretty much most of the products you use that are exceptional, non-labor work. They want people who are incentivized to be the best and make the best, not just work there the longest. But I digress. It looks like their UAW contract with the car companies ends September 14th, and the UAW prodded Biden publicly over provisions in the funding in the IRA, which was that boondoggle, huge omnibus bill, the ironically called the Inflation Reduction Act, which anyone with more than 3 or 4 brain cells should know did not reduce inflation a little bit. It just printed out more money than God could ever imagine. Now, the UAW criticized Biden over that because Biden needed that because it was the key for his political, economic, and climate agenda. And the union also were poking Biden and saying, hey, why did you allow these $9.2 billion in loans for Ford to make EV batteries in states that are less favorable to unions like Kentucky and Tennessee? Kentucky, I believe, is one of the major states that also Toyota has presence in, where, again, they make the most reliable vehicles in history. That's why consistently a internal combustion engine Toyota vehicle, they're the ones where you look at the list of who makes the cars that hit 1 million miles, it's a Toyota. Those things are bulletproof, which is another concern of why they're going towards EV when EVs are more like cell phones. They're disposable. You can't work on them. You don't own it. The company does. You own the hardware, not software. I digress. Now, the UAW is also scared to death of electric vehicles for a myriad of reasons. Partially because there's less low-skilled labor to make them, and they're much more comparable to computers. Also, there's less components. Just technically speaking, there's less things coming together to make the vehicle. If there's less things coming together to make the vehicle, you don't need to pay someone $100 to put a tire on a car on a union contract. You might need half as many resources. There's also an exponential increase in robotics for the actual assembly and the creation of those vehicles. Tesla probably being the most prominent and successful automotive company to embrace all those giant machines, including the Gigapress, which is a revolutionary automotive technology where they just press out the bodies. Huge competitive advantage, but also big upfront cost. So the UAW, they're pretty scared of the adoption of EVs, as they should be. And as you have all these companies, GM in particular, about 6 months ago, Mary Barra, the CEO, they're committed to cutting, I believe, $2 or $3 billion in cost. And they had a voluntary, it wasn't a layoff, but they said, we'll buy out the rest of your contract if you're an executive, if you're a salaried position at the company, because they're trying to cut away as much cost as they can, because they're struggling to stay afloat, yet alone transform into an EV company. And she wants the company to be full EV by 2035. By that time, their EV profit margins should go up because cost of goods traditionally go down. You also have costs going down with aggregate where you could spread that cost around. Similar to if you put up a machine to make doors. For the first 100 doors, compared to 1,000 doors, compared to 100,000 doors, the more doors you make with that same machine, the lower the cost is per unit produced. Because you're amortizing the cost around all of those doors, for that example. And right now, GM as well as Ford, they're losing money on the EVs hand over fist because of that huge upfront cost and also the materials. And times will tell to see what's that break-even point and when do they make a profit. Tesla struggled for, I don't know if it's a decade, but several years until they started making profitability. They also invested heavily in being the bleeding edge of technology, although there's concern by market analysts, are they still that way, and what are they going to do for the next chapter of the company? But it's interesting that the UAW, and also another thing in terms of my personal opinion, the UAW is they put a lot of money into politics, which is why General Motors got bailed out during the 2008 bankruptcy. They just happened to pay out millions upon millions and millions of dollars to the Democratic Party, which one of the things where, oh yeah, you give them money and then they give you money back, which is why there's a lot of controversy around teachers unions, where teachers unions will give a bunch of money to a campaign in terms of a politician. The politician will then increase their wages or increase their salaries when they get elected. Some would call that bribery and corruption. Some. But time, as I always say, shall tell to see what happens to the UAW. Thank you everyone for taking the time to tune in today. Also, we're trying to get to 3,000 subscribers by the end of this month, so if you could click that subscribe button, would really appreciate it. Also, don't forget to like and comment. Those things greatly help the video get shared to more and more people. Also, don't forget to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, tell anyone and everyone. Just stay safe and fight the good fight.